Hey everyone, welcome back to Wix Fix. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Ryan and today's video is another episode of Fix Your Wix, the series where we take one of your websites and we redesign the homepage for fun and educational purposes. Now, if you would like to participate in a future episode of this series, there's going to be a link in the description that you can fill out an application form and you might get chosen for a future episode. But for today's video, we're going to be recreating a homepage for a company called Offbookit. It helps actors learn their lines or memorize their lines faster so that they can land more acting roles. And we're also going to be doing this design in Wix Studio. Let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so here I am in Wix Studio, and as usual with these type of videos, I've already made the header and the footer just to save us a little bit of time. However, if you guys are interested in seeing how to make the perfect header and footer, then let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to make a video on that very soon. But let's go ahead and start working on the hero section here. We want this to be kind of tall, so we'll start with about 800 pixels. Then we're going to come over to the add panel and just drag out this container. Now, what I want to do is just remove the background color. We'll center it and send it to the top. And typically I'll go ahead and turn advanced sizing on for this main container. And we'll set the width to 90% with a 900 pixel minimum width for desktop. Then I'll typically go to tablet and I'll set this to 600 minimum width. And then mobile would be about 280. So this is going to be basically my sizing for all breakpoints for containers. And then what we can do is actually click on the section and save this section as an asset. That way, anytime we add a brand new section to our web page, it's going to have the same kind of grid container layout and everything will be really nice and aligned. But what I want to do in here first is go ahead and split this into a grid. So we're going to come over here and apply a CSS grid. We want 2 columns, and this one right over here is going to be like 26.7 VW or something like that. Maybe not even, or maybe more like 29.5 or something, or 30. Just like that. Then what we're going to want to do is add a little bit of a grid gap. So let's do like 150 pixels. And we'll switch this over to a responsive value. Perfect. Inside of this over here, we're going to want an image. So I'm going to drag this image out here. We'll stretch it. We'll go ahead and change it to this image here. We'll reset the proportions, re-stretch it. And under corners, let's go ahead and add like 24 pixels of rounded edge. Perfect. On top of that, we're also going to want to add a little accent. So I'm going to grab this little highlight thing here. Let's only make it about this size. Let's put it over here in this column and we'll send it to the top left, but let's do like negative 10% on the top and negative 10% on the left. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to basically kind of add a little accent to the image. Now we'll see this better once we add margin to the section, but first inside of the section, let's go ahead and add our heading 1 and we'll set the size to like 62. Then for this heading 1, I know we have a little graphic that I want to highlight the text. So we'll get this hero underline thing here. We don't need it to be this tall, but we can have it be a little bit wider. Okay. Then underneath that, we can have a paragraph. And last but not least, we're going to want to have 2 buttons. So I'm just going to come over here to the header, copy this button, and we'll paste this one down here. Then we'll go ahead and copy and paste it, and we'll change this button a little bit. So the background, we'll change it to this green. Border, we'll do the same thing. And the text, we'll set this to white. And let's go ahead and change the text and everything real quick. So now we've updated all the text. So what I want to do is kind of position everything similar to this. And then we'll go ahead and stack these 2 buttons together. So we have a horizontal stack. We'll move this right over here and let's move this down a little bit more. And then for this little graphic and this text, we'll place these in a container and then we'll grab the paragraph and the buttons and stack these together. Great. Now we can, with the stack, just go ahead and center it just like that. Then we'll grab this container and we'll set like a 5% margin on the top and bottom. Then we can grab the section and remove the height. So this is going to be our hero section right here. And I think it looks pretty clean. But let's go ahead and come over to our ad panel. We'll come over to assets and we'll add a brand new section here. And just like I mentioned before, we have this container inside of it that basically has all of these settings that I prefer. So we're already ready to go. But inside of this, what I want to do is actually apply a grid, and we're going to do this, and we're going to make this one a 1x2 grid with like a 10 VW gap, just like this. In this top section, we just want some text and a title. So we're going to come over to add text. We'll grab a heading 2, then we'll grab a simple paragraph. Let's just grab these. We'll stack them together. We'll center them on the page. We'll center them inside of the stack, and we'll change the spacing a little bit. Fantastic. Now let's go ahead and change the text real quick. And then we can grab the row for this container, and we'll set this one to minimum content, just like this. For this bottom row, what we're going to want to do is just add a repeater in here. So we'll just simply add this repeater. We'll stretch it under the grid gaps. Let's maybe set this to be like 60 pixels. I don't know. That should be okay. And we'll grab the repeater items and remove the background color. Fantastic. Now inside of this, what we're gonna want to have is like little icons. So what I'm gonna do is attach this here. We don't need it to be this big. Maybe we'll make it like 100 pixels, something like this. Center it, send it to the top. Fantastic. Then let's add like a heading 4 text element here. We don't need it to be this long, and we'll go ahead and center the text. And then last but not least, I'm just going to copy this paragraph. We'll paste it here. We'll resize it, and we'll stick it right underneath this heading. Of course, we'll expand it just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Then we'll grab these 3 elements, stack them together just like that. And now let's go ahead and change out the content here. Alrighty. And for this text right here, I'm just going to make this like 16 pixels, something like that. Fantastic. Now let's grab the main container. We'll grab the row, set this to minimum content, and now this section is already done. We can even adjust this a little bit to maybe be around like 41 instead of 60. I think this looks really clean. Great. For this next section, we're going to come over to our assets and pull out this 90% container. And basically this is the asset I was telling you guys about, where it's just a section and inside there is a container that has a width of 90%. This is just something that helps me speed up my workflow. So if you want to set something up like this for yourself, that's always a really good idea. But for this section right here, it's going to be about the teacher of the course. So what we're going to do is apply a 2x1 grid. In this left-hand column, we're going to add the image of her. So her name is Joyce. We're going to stick it over here, and we're going to round the corners to like 24, not 240, 24. And we're going to kind of align it to the left and middle. Also with this container, let's add like 150 pixel grid gap, and then we can make this responsive. And let's just go ahead and resize this to the grid, and we'll go ahead and center it like that. Perfect. Inside of this, we're gonna add some text. So I'm just gonna copy this text over here. We'll paste it. We'll align it to the left, and we don't need it to be this long. So we'll go ahead and shrink it, put it right here, and then we'll stretch it to be the full width. And now let's go ahead and change the text. Okay. So for this text, I actually kind of want this to be our green color. And I also want to add that little accent that we did for the image in the hero section. So we're going to grab this little hero highlight. If we come down to adjust, we can flip it around. We don't need it to be this big. We can make it about this big. And I kind of just want to place it right about here, and maybe just kind of nudge it over with the arrow keys on the keyboard. Something like that should look pretty good. And I do also want to grab this button here. Let's go ahead and paste it down below. Instead of full course, we can say learn more and link this to like an about page. And then I'm going to attach this to our stack here. Perfect. And we will need to kind of adjust this a little bit more. But let's go ahead and grab both of these, the little highlight and the stack. We'll place these in a container, and then we'll just make sure that this container is completely centered. Then we can grab the main section container, come over to rows, and we'll just remove the height. Perfect. There we go. The next section that we're going to have is basically going to promote the free training and her full course. And I really want to create some sort of really cool scroll effect here. So what I want to do is split this into 3 rows. So we're going to go ahead and add a grid, 1 by 3. And then for each of these rows, I want it to set each of these heights to 80 VH, something like that. For the grid gaps, I want there to be like a vertical gap of 5 VW, just so there is a little bit of a gap. In this top row, we're just going to add a simple image real quick, and we'll make sure it's in the top grid cell. We'll stretch it, and for the corners for this one, we'll set it to 32. Now we've been using 24 for images like this. However, there are some complications sometimes with the scroll effect that I'm about to show you, and just slightly adjusting the curvature of the image here for this section in particular basically solves that problem, and it's really not even noticeable. So it works out in our favor for this. But in the second row, I want to set up some text. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in this text right here. Let's go ahead and grab another text element. We'll attach it to the stack. We'll align it to the center. We'll make it green. And then I want to grab a green button that says view free training. We'll paste it in here, and we'll basically put it inside of this stack. Now let's go ahead and change out the text. Then we'll go ahead and kind of adjust the spacing here in our stack. And then with the stack selected, we'll go ahead and center it in this section here. Fantastic. Next, let's just copy this stack. We'll come down to this third row and we'll paste it down here. Once again, let's center it. I'm going to delete this free training. We'll change the text to view full course. Then we'll change the text in here. And what I kind of want to do is grab this little vector art here. Let's copy it. I do want to bring it down here and paste it in. Just to make it a little bit different, let's go ahead and just flip it. We don't need it to be this big, so we'll make it a little bit smaller, and we'll just bring it into the stack just like this. Now for the spacing here, I want there to be a little bit more spacing in between the art and the paragraph, but I want there to be kind of like a negative margin here for the title. And I think that looks pretty good. Now let's grab this stack. We'll make sure it is completely centered here in the section. And now we are good to go. So in order to create this kind of cool effect, what we're going to want to do is add a container here to this bottom one. Okay. We'll go ahead and make sure it's in the bottom grid cell. We'll stretch it. Perfect. For the corners, let's make it 24 pixels. For the border, for this one, we're going to make it green. Okay, now let's copy it and then we'll paste it here. We'll stretch this one again and we'll make sure we're pasting it in the main container, not the same container. And for this one, we want it to stretch the top two. So it looks like this, but for the design for the border, we're not going to have this one be green. We're just going to have this one be like a light gray. Okay, so now here's where things start to get complex. So what I want to do first is name this one 3 container. And this is the container from the third row. This is going to be 2 container. This stack right here is going to be the third stack in the third row. And this one's going to be the stack in the second row. Okay, so what I want to do first is send container 2 to the back, but above the image. Because when we do the scroll effect, I want this container to be above this image. Okay. Then for container 3, I want this to be above stack 2, but below stack 3. Okay. Now I think we have the order that we want. However, things might change when we start adding the scroll effect. So the first thing we want to do with this image right here is we're going to come down to position type and we're going to set this to sticky. Now I do want to add a 5% top offset. Fantastic. The next thing I want to do is I want to grab container 2, and what we're going to do is set a position type of sticky, and we're going to set a top offset of, again, 5%. Then let's go ahead and grab stack 2. We're going to set the position type to sticky, and I believe for this one we're going to want it to be like 25%. Again, this stuff might need to be slightly adjusted, but what we're going to do is just drag this image below container 3 and stack 3, and just for fun, let's go ahead and preview and see where we're at. It should give us a better idea of what we need to fix. So this stops right here, then the second section comes in and it doesn't seem to stop. And section 3 seems to be hidden behind it. So there we go. I did something wrong. We need stack 3 and container 3 to be above stack and container 2. So once again, let's just go ahead and preview this real quick. That stops. This doesn't seem to stop, so we need to fix that. I think this stops at the perfect area, but I think the container didn't stop, so we need to make sure we do that. But everything else looks pretty good. After spending a few minutes trying to figure out why this isn't stopping properly or where I want it to, I think I'm just gonna have to move on for now. But one additional thing that I do want to do is have a scroll interaction on this. So when this one starts to scroll up, I kind of want this one to fade out a little bit. So what we're going to do is come over to interactions, scroll, and what we're going to do is fade, but we don't want it to fade to its design. We want it to fade from its design. We'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll open up adjust. And then what we want to do is maybe set it to be about like this, like 35 to 60, something like that. So in that way, when we go ahead and press preview, as soon as the third one starts coming up, the free training starts fading out a little bit. And I think that looks pretty clean. But for the next section, it's going to basically be some testimonials. So for this one, we're going to want to split this into 3 rows. So we'll go ahead and add a CSS grid, split this into 3 rows. In this top row, I want to add some text just like this. So we'll just grab this asset that we've already basically created and we'll paste it into this top row. We'll center it. Fantastic. In this bottom row, I just want there to be a button. So we'll just grab this button and we'll paste it in here. This button is just going to say view more, and we'll just make sure it is centered. Then we'll grab the container, and for the top and bottom row, we'll set these to minimum content. And then for the middle row, let's just set this to like 500 pixels for now. And while we're here, we might as well add a 5 VW grid gap in between these rows. Inside of this middle row here, let's just add a simple container. We'll stretch it. We'll apply a 2x1 grid with 150 pixel gap, and we'll make it responsive. Fantastic. And let's just remove the background color. And we'll also just change this text up here, what people are saying. Okay. Inside of this, I just wanted it to be pretty easy. So I'm just going to add a simple container. We'll remove the background color. Inside of this, let's add a video just like this. We'll send it to the top left. We'll add contour. So we'll make it like 24 pixels and we'll make it about this size. Fantastic. Now let's grab this paragraph. We'll paste it in here. We'll align it to the left and we'll place it right just like this. And we'll grab both and stack these together. Now with this container selected, I can copy and then paste it over here to this left-hand side or right-hand side, sorry. And then we'll stretch it. And now let's go ahead and change out the content. And let's just also change this text to more testimonials. I think that just looks a little bit cleaner. Make it a little bit bigger, center it. Okay. And also I think this gap might be a little bit too much. So let's just do 5. I think that looks a little bit cleaner. Fantastic. Now let's grab this row here and we'll set this to minimum content. Fantastic. For this next section, it's just going to be for the blog. So we're going to basically create something very similar to this section up here. So actually, why not just copy and paste this section? Perfect. Then what I can do is come to this middle row here. We'll set this to 500 pixels. And then we'll grab this container inside of it and just delete it, just so we can basically have a good starting place to work from. But let me go ahead and start by changing the text and everything here real quick. Great. Now inside of this middle row, what I want to do is just add a repeater. So we'll go to quick add, repeater, add, then we'll stretch this. For the gap, let's do like 5 VW. Perfect. For the design of the item, let's remove the background color, or we can set the background color to white. Let's add like a very light border color. We'll just make it 1 pixel. And for the corners, we'll make it 24. Fantastic. Then what I want to do is come down to padding and we'll set this to like 30 pixels, something like that. Yeah, that should do. And we'll go ahead and lock it to all sides. We'll set all sides to 30 pixel padding. Fantastic. Inside of this, let's add an image. And with this image, let's go ahead and round the edges. Maybe not that much. We'll do 12. Typically, if you're doing like a rounded edge corner on something like on the outer side of like an image, something like this, then for the inner child of that element, shouldn't have as much rounding as the parent does. I think it just looks clean. For example, like if you just look at it now, this looks pretty clean. However, if we did make both of these 24 radius, something just seems a little bit off with those images, with the image. So that's a really good tip to keep in mind. Have a lower corner radius for the child element when it's close to its parent's corner radius as well. But underneath the image, let's go ahead and add a text element. So we'll come on to text, and maybe we'll just do like a heading 6, just like that. And I'll go ahead and change out the images and the photos real quick. Great. So now that we've changed all of those, we can come over here to this main grid row, and we'll set this to minimum content. Great. Underneath this, all we're going to have is a call to action. So with this container, all I really want to do is set the background color. Then let's also add a 24 pixel radius here. Fantastic. Inside of this, we're just going to have a giant text element and a button. So let's grab a heading 2 and we'll grab this button down here and we'll paste it right here. Now for this button, I do want the background color to be kind of like their dark green. Okay, but then we're going to grab the text element and the button. We'll stack these together. We'll center the items, make sure it's centered in the box. And we don't need this much space, so we'll do something right about here. Let's go ahead and change the text real quick. Okay, and then we can go ahead and expand it. Something like this should look good. Once again, we'll center it inside of the section. Then let's add like 5% margin on the top and bottom of this stack. Then we can grab this container itself and we can just make it a lot shorter. Perfect. And now we are done. So if I come all the way up to the top of the website and press preview, here would be the new Off Book It website. Perfect. But that's basically gonna wrap it up for today's video. If you all did enjoy, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel for more Wix Studio content coming out really soon. Thank you all again, and I'll see you on the next one.